Your team is losing 40% of their productivity every single day. And that fact is backed by research. But here's the kicker. Their brains are rewarding them for it. There's a dopamine feedback loop that makes them feel productive when in reality they're bleeding time. But it doesn't have to be this way. As a leader, you can break the cycle. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to do it. If you follow these steps, in just 1 hour's time with each team member, you can make a significant change in their productivity and the results of the team. Most people love the myth of multitasking. Even all the way up the chain, we believe that the more things that we are giving our attention to, the more progress we're making on all fronts. But let's get real. Sure, you can drive your car and be thinking about something else at the same time. You're thinking about some problem at work. But you can't also be evaluating your team for a succession plan while you're driving, while you're thinking about a problem, and while also looking at a team's message and considering how to respond. You can't do those things simultaneously. Even if you're sitting still, staring at a blank wall, you can't do those things simultaneously. If you don't believe me, consult the research. There was a study done by Joshua Rubinstein, Jeffrey Evans, and David Meyer. They published it in 2001 or so. And that research shows that what people call multitasking is actually just rapid task switching. And that switching cost, it hits your productive time by as much as 40%. So why do we do it? Why do you and your team have Outlook and Teams and Excel open at the same time? It's because it feels good. Neuroscientist Daniel Levitin found that this behavior creates a dopamine feedback loop. Every time we switch tasks, ping an email, ping a Teams message, ping this other thing we need to work on. Our brain gets a tiny hit of dopamine. It feels good to switch between tasks. We as leaders need to break that cycle for ourselves and our teams. And the higher up the ladder we get, the harder it is to break that cycle. But if we want uncommon results, we need to take uncommon actions. So here's how we're going to do it. We're going to meet with each team member one at a time and work through this process. Pick your first team member and start with the person that is the highest capability. It's not someone that looks good, but someone that does good. Someone that has delivered great results or you think is very capable of delivering those results. At a high level, what we're going to do with each person is we're going to create a funnel. We're going to narrow that funnel, and then we're going to provide them cover. The first thing to do with that team member, and you can do this on a whiteboard or you can have them do it in Excel or email, it doesn't matter. Have them create a list of all of their initiatives, projects, their commitments. And the goal here is volume. You want a big list for the top of the funnel. If your team member gives you a list of only 10 things, that's not long enough. They need to come up with a list that's at least 20 long. Everybody's got more than that many responsibilities every day. Sometimes we might forget and lose sight of certain things. But again, the goal here is volume at the start. So step 2, we're going to start to narrow the funnel. Now, the first part's going to be easy. It's going to be the low-hanging fruit. It's going to be things that you and your team member can both agree are not worth their time. You cross those things off the list and you narrow the funnel. So now we need to narrow it down to 3 strategic priorities for your team member. And that's going to seem like a big change. That's going to feel like, how do I go from this list of whatever it is, 30 things, and narrow it down to 3? As you start to narrow this down with your team member, they'll realize that there are these different branches that don't fit cleanly into strategic priorities, but still need to be done. For example, you still need to approve promotions and raises and do performance reviews and things like that. We need to help them separate those activities into a different mental bucket so that they can focus on the strategic ones. So step 3 is to create a punch list. These are things that you know aren't your highest strategic priority, but are required. But because they're not the highest strategic priority, they get the lowest quality effort, the lowest quality time. Late afternoon, they attend to that meeting that they need to attend. The middle afternoon and they've got a slump, then they approve purchase requisitions. But middle of the morning, that time is dedicated to their strategic priorities. Okay, so we created the top of the funnel and we narrowed the funnel a little bit. And then we narrowed the funnel a little bit more. And then we realized that there are things that aren't strategic, but still need to be done. And so we created a separate punch list of things that need to be done, but only will be done at the lowest quality time that your team member has. Now we're at the bottom of the funnel and we've got to push something through, but that bottom of the funnel is only big enough for one project. Top 3 is still too broad. You need to help them focus further. We have to narrow this funnel even further to get them to focus on one thing. Remember, task switching results in a 40% hit to productivity. And while you can't sit over your team member's shoulder and watch what they're doing, you can help them focus on one thing. If they're as capable as you believe they are, they'll take that one thing and they'll knock it out of the park. And then they can do the next thing. Okay, so I'm going to give a disclaimer before this next step. Because if you have a needy executive, this is not going to be popular with them. If you have somebody that wants to ping your team and get an answer quickly throughout the day, this is going to be a problem for them, which means it's going to be a problem for you. But this is arguably the most important step of all. Step 5, disable notifications. No email pop-up when you get a new email. No Teams message icon that shows how many unread messages you have. Shut it all off. What you want your team to do is you want them to focus exclusively on the problem at hand and then go pull from those channels when they need it. If there's a Slack channel, they can go pull from that in their low quality time. Email, they can go pull from that in their low quality time. But their highest quality time, their highest productivity time is invested in the highest strategic priority that they have. Have you ever noticed that when you hop into your car and your phone's Bluetooth connects to the car's radio, that your phone's apps change? Maybe not all of them, maybe it's just one or two, but some of those apps change into car mode. Why do they do that? It's because the most important thing to do while you're driving is to drive. The most important thing to spend your time and attention on is the critical task at hand, driving. Similarly, when your team sits down to work, the most important thing to do is to focus on the critical task at hand. And remember, we're working against biology here. That dopamine feedback loop feels good, but it's not doing us any good. Okay, so the hard part is done. Now comes the part that is easy, but is gonna hurt the most for you. Step 6 is the Dear John letter. For everything that is not the number one priority for your team member, you tell them, don't touch these things. I'll provide cover for you. Then you immediately put a stake in the ground. You take responsibility for sending those Dear John letters, those breakup letters, to the people that are going to be the most pissed off that your team isn't working on their priority. It's the people that reach out to your team members on Slack or Teams and they expect an immediate reply or within 30 minutes or something relatively quick. But the reality is, frankly, that their number one priority for your team is not your number one priority for your team. They don't get your team support right now at this moment. You send an email acknowledging the decision and taking responsibility for that decision. Now, look, I understand there are certain stakeholders that's just not going to go over well at all, and it's better that they don't know. What they don't know can't hurt them. I've personally found that that's a losing strategy. I've personally found that it's better to be upfront about it, to try to pull that pain to this moment instead of delaying that pain into the future, but you decide what's right for you. Part of the important thing about sending that email is that your team member is copied on it. What this does is it shields the team. It gives them cover to focus on what you have decided together is the most important thing for them to work on. And the data says that this yields better results. While you will have frustrated stakeholders initially, as your team executes and does great things, your team will build credibility and you'll get more cover, right? So it's less but better. And remember, if we want uncommon results, we need to take uncommon action. I hope that was useful. And thank you for investing in you today with me.